Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Panachari Jamuna Tira Panachari Jamuna Tira Panachari Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Sri Radhe Shama Gauri Nitya Kishori Rita Manjari Sri Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Sri Radhe Rasika Rasilo Chaila Chavilo Punakaravilo Sri Krishna Jai Krishna Jai Krishna Krishna Jai Krishna Jai Sri Krishna Ranakiyari Rupa Ujari Ati Sukumari Sri Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Sri Radhe Nava Navarangi Navamatrivangi Shama Surangi Sri Krishna Jai Krishna Jai Krishna Krishna Jai Krishna Jai Sri Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama Hari Rama 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 Hari Hari Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Tadamayam Tadati Svapatantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Judhapatakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vidham Tham Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vidhamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabhandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tatra Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patithanam Bhavavibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It is an immense honor to have this opportunity to be with all of you this evening in this very beautiful holy place. Krishna tells Tatra Tishtami Narada Yatra Gayanti Madbhakta, that wherever people come together to discuss my teachings, my pastimes, and chant my names, I am there. That is a holy place. We are very grateful to Yash and Avanti and their wonderful family for so kindly inviting a few of us here tonight. In this case, a few thousand of us, I think. But it's really beautiful because this is one of the most aesthetically beautiful garden I've ever seen. And when it's filled with so many beautiful people, it's the spiritual world. In the backdrop behind me, we have Srimathji, Shri Giridhari, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. In Vrindavan, this is perhaps the most enthusiastic festival of the whole year. Govardhan Puja, the day that Lord Sri Krishna lifted Shri Giriraj. He did so to protect his devotees and to facilitate the most intimate, loving relationships with his devotees. One of his devotees, his name is Indra. And how did Krishna protect Indra? Indra's post is very powerful. Tremendous amount of wealth, influence, facility to enjoy. But unfortunately, instead of understanding that it's all God's property and all this that I have is for the purpose of utilizing in God's service, on God's behalf, he started to think, it is mine, my beauty, my knowledge, my influence, my wealth, my power. And with that pride, something happens. We lose the natural propensity of the heart and the soul to offer honor and respect to others. Krishna saw that in his devotee. So he orchestrated this incredible pastime to make Indra angry. And I think you all know the story. Krishna saw his father and all the Vrijabasis making beautiful arrangements. So what are you doing? Nanda Maharaj said, we are celebrating Indra Puja. We do this every year. Indra brings rains, and we should show our gratitude and affection for him by offering him the best things we have. And little Krishna, who was only 7 years old at the time, he said, actually, Father, what do we need this Indra for? Our cows are getting grass from Govardhan Hill. And besides that, if we do good things, then we'll have good karma, and with good karma, Indra has to bring rain. And because we're good, he's just the agent of our own karma. So let's utilize all that you have made for Indra to worship the hill Govardhan. and the Brahmins and the cows. And ultimately the Brajavasis, they did not know that Krishna is God, but they loved him more than everything and anything. Their ultimate purpose in life was simply to make Krishna happy. So they did it. And everyone was very happy. When you water the root of a tree, all parts of the tree are happy. Janmadhyasya yataha. The Brahma Sutra tells the absolute truth is from whom everything emanates, the root of all existence. When we offer the water of our love to Krishna, naturally our love extends to every living being. That is true love, universal love. That is love of God. The ultimate goal. Prema Pumartha Mahan. That there is no higher blessing. There is no higher spiritual state than unconditional, unmotivated, pure love for the Supreme Lord. Why? Because it extends to everyone, unconditionally. So everyone was happy because Krishna was happy, except Indra, because he had this ahankara, this false ego. And he was so mad. He sent the clouds of devastation to destroy the entire Vrindavan and all of the inhabitants. There were freezing cold winds, massive blackish clouds, and torrents of rain, not drops, pillars of rain. And all the Brajavasis, they put the cows in front, and they came before Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho, you are very great, little Krishna. He's just a little boy. But when it came to impossible situations, they spontaneously turned to him. And he smiled. And he lifted Sri Giriraj Govardhan Hill with his left hand and held it up with the tip of his finger. And said, everyone come. See, Giriraj Govardhan was so happy by all the offerings we made to him. Mountains and mountains and mountains of bhoga, and lakes of bhoga. But now he's protecting us. He's taken the role of a gigantic umbrella. Come, come. So all the Brajavasis went onto the hill, and Krishna stood in this beautiful form. The Tribanga, threefold bending form of Giridhari, holding this massive mountain. It was much bigger in olden days. There's a Puranic story of how it is reducing in size. But today, to walk around, it is 21 kilometers. And a few years ago, Yash and Avanti and Radha Krishna Prabhu, we all did the Govardhan Parikrama together, and Vedanta, Nirvana, Sloka, with our bare feet. That's the tradition. And you could ask them about their transcendental, pleasurable experience. But can you imagine? Because we were stopping in different places and telling stories, and actually around Govardhan Hill there are so many places where this Govardhan Leela, different episodes took place. It took us 15 hours. And Krishna lifted it and held it up with the little finger of his left hand. And all this rain was pouring and pouring, and lightning, thunder. And Giriraj didn't feel any inconvenience. Because the pleasure of being touched by the tip of Krishna's finger, and he's a big mountain, but just that little tiny point where he was being touched with Krishna was filling him with so much happiness that all the lightning bolts and all the massive torrents of rain felt good to him. The Bhagavad Gita tells, Param drisva nivartate. On the path of bhakti, the way that we transcend the inevitable miseries of this world is by experiencing a higher taste. When we are touched by the grace, by the beauty, by the sweetness, by the love of Krishna, from within the heart, Krishna says, intelligence is when we find our pleasure within and we rejoice within. Then whatever may happen in this unpredictable, ever-changing world, we're transcendental. It's not that the rain stopped. It's not that the thunder ceased. It's that Govardhan was just in such happiness, feeling Krishna touching him, that these things felt good to him. And while under the hill, Krishna related with every single devotee, thousands and thousands of Vrajavasis, just according to his relationship with them, for 7 days and 7 nights continuously. By his glances, by his smiles, by his sweet words, by his gestures, every single person was thinking, Krishna's just relating to me. And he was embracing them within his heart, and they were embracing him within their hearts, and it was the ultimate supreme festival of love, continuously for 7 days. While meanwhile, that's what was going on under the hill. While on top of the hill, it was a massive storm, like the world had never seen. And ultimately, Indra realized that all of his powers, he did not have the ability to move a single grain of dust from Govardhan Hill. There were millions of trees and all these tornadoes, hurricanes, and cyclones. He could not remove a single leaf from one tree. And all the animals on Govardhan Hill, because they were feeling indirectly the ecstasy of Govardhan being touched by Krishna's fingers, they were just looking up at these big clouds and smiling and laughing at them. Indra was totally humiliated in front of the whole universe. It was a very public scene. And he stopped all the clouds, and he went to his guru, Brihaspati. Brihaspati said, you better go to Brahma. You tried to kill all Krishna's family. So he went to Brahma, and Brahma said, you're coming to me, but if you want to get Krishna's forgiveness, it's very easy. Just please someone that Krishna loves very much. Go to Sarabi, the mother of the cows. And Sarabi felt sympathy for Indra. And she brought Indra to Braj Bhumi. And she went up to Krishna and said, my beloved Lord, please forgive Indra. He made a big mistake and he's sorry. stranger was forgiven. And he learned a good lesson. So in this way, Krishna in different ways reciprocates with his devotees' love by giving protection. And I feel very protected with Giriraj standing behind me, gazing upon all of you. In this age of Kali, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Radini Shaktirasma. It's described the absolute truth as one, but that one absolute truth becomes two. Radha Krishna. Sitaram Lakshmi Narayan. The male and female aspects of the absolute truth for the purpose of divine loving relationships. And that love between Radha and Krishna is the origin of all love. And because we, Mamayvam so Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, the Atma, the living force within us, is part and parcel of Krishna. Like a sun ray is part of the unlimited sunshine emanating from the sun. We are of the same quality as Krishna, one in quality. Satchit Ananda. And that same love between Radha and Krishna, that love is within our heart, naturally, for Krishna. Radha and Krishna entered into one form, according to the scripture. Krishna wanted to taste the sweetness of Sri Radha's love. So he appeared with the love of Radha and the complexion of Radha as Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya was Krishna not only tasting the unlimited happiness of Radha's love, but he was distributing it to the world. I'll tell one instance that is just springing from my heart at this moment, with your permission. Because I asked Yashinavanti, what would you like me to speak about? And they said, whatever you like. So I am going to take that liberty. Lord Chaitanya he became a sannyasi at one time in his latter part of life. He was traveling throughout India, giving Krishna praying through Krishna Nam. So simple. Nam Nam Akari Bahudan Nija Sarva Shaktish. This is the conclusion of so many of the great Vedic literatures. That Krishna is none different than his name. That all the powers, all the beauty, all the sweetness, all the grace of God are within the name of God. And Om Apavitra Pavitro Vasarvavastam Gatopiva, because the Lord is all pure, the name of the Lord purifies us. And as we chant the name, it is like removing the dust from the mirror of the heart, and when our mind becomes clear, we actually can see our own eternal nature and taste the love of God that is our nature. So Lord Chaitanya was traveling, and he came to a temple in a place called Kurma Kshetra, where there's a morti of Kurmadev, the great avatar of the Lord. It's a very obscure temple in a village in South India, specifically Andhra Pradesh. How many of you have been to the Kurma temple in Andhra Pradesh? Please raise your hand. A few years ago, we took many, many devotees to that temple. I'd like to tell you what happened. Lord Chaitanya came And when he saw Krishna, he was in the mood, Krishna in a mood of a devotee of Krishna. He started chanting the holy names with such love and dancing in ecstasy. The Lord's dance was not some sort of performance. It's the name of the Lord was impelling such emotions. His body was just expressing love through every movement. It was so beautiful that soon all the people of the village came to chant and to dance with him. The word spread. And another village. Soon there was tens and thousands of people from hundreds of villages all around. And Lord Chaitanya was telling them, Hari Bol. And they were all chanting, Hari, Hari. He was literally, his tears were bathing everyone. That was his power. When God wants to cry, he can inundate the universe with his tears. Tears of love. It went on for hours and hours and hours. And when he finished the kirtan, one person who was deeply affected was a Brahmin named Kurma. He invited Lord Chaitanya to his home. He was actually a very wealthy man, of very high culture. When Lord Chaitanya came to his home, Kurma washed his feet, as is the custom in those days 500 years ago in South India. Then he gathered his whole family together, and they all drank the water that washed his feet. And they were feeling unlimited happiness. And he gave Lord Chaitanya a beautiful seat. And they prepared prasad for him and fed him sumptuously. And they ate the Maha prasad of Lord Chaitanya. And they were so happy. The Kurma Brahmin was feeling there is no greater satisfaction than to serve. To serve the Lord, or to serve a great personality. The amount of happiness of acquiring something can only give some fleeting pleasure to the mind and to the senses and the body. But the satisfaction of serving without selfish motives, serving God in the hearts of others, that actually gives real pleasure to our very soul. He offered a prayer. He said, "My Lord, I know who you are. Lord Brahma is constantly meditating on your lotus feet, and today those same lotus feet have come into my house. I cannot calculate my unlimited good fortune. Today my family, my home, and all of the riches I have acquired have become supremely auspicious, because you have accepted them as my offering to you." And then he said something very interesting. He said, "My Lord, I have one favor I want to ask from you. Please let me come with you wherever you go, because I can no longer tolerate the waves of misery of materialistic life. I want to renounce it all and come with you." forever. This is very interesting. He was pious. He was very wealthy. He had a beautiful family. But he was saying that he could not tolerate the waves of misery. Sometimes this material existence is compared to a great ocean, the Bhava Sagar, the ocean of material existence. Have you ever seen an ocean without waves? Sometimes there's very pleasing waves. Sometimes there's not pleasing waves. I'm going to depart from this story and tell you another story. And then I'm going to come back to this story. A few years ago, I was in Italy. And there was a big festival near Venice, Venezia. And there was several hundred devotees gathered together. And we were having kirtan, having kathas. But there was something that was difficult. Italy was then going through the most severe heat wave in over 100 years. Massive crops were just drying up and dying, and every day people were dying due to the heat. It was so bad that the Pope proclaimed that everyone should pray to God to stop the heat wave. That's what they told me. So we were doing kirtan in Venice, under the sun. And everyone was really hot and really hungry. And they decided, in order to cool off everyone who was there, we were going to take a boat to a special island near Venice, where there's a beautiful, calm sea of cool water. And they were going to bring a feast of Italiano prasad. Everyone was very enthusiastic. So we took this boat. But we didn't realize we had to walk through the heat about an hour and a half to get to where the sea was, the other side. And when we got there, it was dark. Still over 40 degrees Celsius, more than that. And the moon was a full moon. It was rising from the ocean. It looked so beautiful. The moon beams were dancing upon these gentle waves. And the men were on one side and the ladies were on another side. We put on, some had bathing suits, some had gamshas. I don't know what the ladies were wearing because Swamis don't take interest in those things. I was one of them. I touched that water. It was cool, refreshingly cool. Oh, you can't imagine. When you've been perspiring for days in oppressive heat, you just want to submerge your body. And as we were walking into the water, it was so refreshing, so soothing. It was heaven, paradise. As we were looking at the moon shimmering upon the surface, the sea, we got in about up to our necks. And I heard people going, ah. And then I heard, ah! What was that? I'm sorry. Trying to give you a realistic effect of what was happening. People were screaming. screaming and yelling, and I was thinking, what's happening? Everything's so nice. And then I heard them start saying, Medusa, Medusa, Medusa. And I don't know Italian. What is Medusa? But then Medusa was translated in a very esoteric way. Suddenly, I got this burning, excruciating sting on my leg and on my waist and on my and there were just stings coming. And I realized that was the translation. There were hundreds and hundreds of jellyfish, and they were stinging everyone. And I'll never forget what was happening. It was really a scene. Some people were in so much pain. How many of you have been stung by jellyfish? Please raise your hand and say Haribo. People were running full speed out of the ocean to somehow or other get out into the shore. And as they were running, they were getting stung. And other people I saw, because for so many hours they were looking forward to that refreshing, cool experience of the sea. When they finally got it, they were so attached to it, they couldn't leave, even though they were getting tortured repeatedly by jellyfish. They were, The mind is like that. You get fixed in this idea that you're going to enjoy something, and even if you're suffering, you're trying to enjoy it. And I was somewhere in between, actually. But I left. And I won't tell you all the esoteric ways that people were trying to relieve the pain of the jellyfish. Would you like to hear one of them? But you'll have to edit this off any videos. But I saw some people in a private place passing urine on each other. I was thinking, what is this? They said, this is a traditional cure for jellyfish. And somehow I didn't feel that, even though I'm actually a traditional person, I was not feeling very traditional in that particular circumstance. Anyways, we finally came out, and people are all scarred and burned, but there was one solace. Italian prasad. We're all sitting on the beach waiting. And the people who were supposed to bring the prasad forgot it on the boat. So they ran to the boat, and the boat had already gone back to Venice. And they called the boat, and the boat was coming back. So anyways, there was no prasad, and it wasn't a very refreshing. Why am I telling this story? It's the nature of this world. Maya. Maya means that which is not what it appears to be. It appears that I'm this body, but I'm not my body. I'm the eternal soul. Things are not what they appear to be unless we have spiritual wisdom, samadarshana. So sometimes material nature can promise us so much pleasure if we just have this or get that or go there. But what we don't understand is just beneath that very cooling moonlit surface, there may be jellyfish. Of the Adhyatmika, Adhibautika, Adhidaivika, the threefold miseries of material existence. So here the Kurma Brahman is explaining whoever we are, whether we have PhDs or whether we cannot spell our name, whether we're immensely wealthy or we're very simple and without much wealth, whether we're healthy and strong or whether we're old and invalid, Whatever our situation is in this world, we're subjected to the waves of suffering. No one is exempt. Dukkhalaya ashashvatam. Krishna tells the nature of this world is things are temporary, things are changing, and so many things are just beyond our control. And the more we're infatuated with the idea of controlling things, the more frustrated we become when things are just beyond our control. But when we actually surrender to a higher power, to the grace of God, and understand He's the supreme controller and I'm an adjustable instrument, then we can actually be peaceful in any situation. The Bhagavad Gita gives a verse in the 5th chapter called the Peace Formula. Bhoktaram jagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam yatvamam shanti vichjati. That one who simply understands that the Supreme Lord, or Krishna, is the proprietor of everything, the controller of everything, the ultimate enjoyer of everything, and He's our best loving father, mother, and friend. Such a person in any situation, like Giriraj, whether it's a nice spring day or whether Indra is pouring lightning bolts on you, who's happy. If we find that foundational happiness within ourselves, that peace, nothing can shake it. But if we don't, many jellyfish. So the Kurma Brahmin is saying, take me with you. Yes, everything seems all right in my family, but there's so many anxieties and so many frustrations and so many challenges. Take me, Lord, take me, I'm ready. Lord Chaitanya looked at him and said, do not ever speak this way again. He said, you must stay home. There is no reason to change your external situation. What is required is a change of heart. Remain in your occupation, remain with your family, remain with your home, but I will tell you how you can find the ultimate happiness and liberation. Just chant the names of Krishna. Try to always chant the names of Krishna. And with whatever you have, whatever God has given you, your intelligence, your abilities, facilities, try to be an instrument of Krishna's compassion. Chant Krishna's name to purify your own heart and express that love of your heart as compassion to others. And in this way, the miseries of material existence will not obstruct your spiritual progress, even in your occupation and in your home. He said, if you just do this, take my name, and show this kindness, this compassion to others, he said, I promise you, we will never be separated. Your house will be my home. You will see me here. You will feel me here. Your home will be Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Wherever that attitude is, that is Vaikuntha. It is not something we have to die to achieve. Bhakti is about transforming material energy into spiritual energy by simply understanding its inherent connection to Krishna, recognizing it and utilizing it accordingly. We often use the analogy, a knife, is it good or bad? If a knife is in the hands of a thief, it will be used to kill someone. If that same knife is in the hands of a surgeon, it will be used to save a life. Morphine, it's a drug. Is it good or bad? If morphine is in the hands of a greedy drug dealer, he's going to somehow or other convince some young person who's influenceable, to somehow or other take it and give it to him cheaply till he's totally addicted to it, then ruin his life. At Bhaktivedanta Hospital, we have a hospice. And Bhaktivedanta Hospital started a hospice in Vrindavan for people who want to, in the last stages of their life, be treated with much devotion during their last days. We have morphine there. Their morphine is used to help a person to be stable in their consciousness so that they could remember Krishna and be actually happy when they're passing from the world. So everything in this world has a potential negative or dark side according to our consciousness. So Lord Chaitanya said, you're talking about the waves of misery. If you just put Krishna in the center by chanting his mere name and utilizing your wonderful energy for seva, for others, and your home becomes the spiritual world. Your occupation becomes a beautiful offering of seva. Your family becomes Krishna's family. It's beautiful. And this is what Lord Chaitanya taught everyone wherever he went. The next morning, Lord Chaitanya left the Kurma Brahmin's house. And what do you think happened? After all this good teachings, Kurma left with Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, after they walked some distance together, he smiled and said, go home. Yari deka tari kaha Krishna upadesha mara goi guru hoi tare desh. You can be the guru for the whole land if you just give Krishna to others through compassion, through a spirit of seva. So he came home. That morning, someone named Vasudeva, he came to meet Lord Chaitanya. Vasudeva had leprosy, a very extreme state of leprosy, where living worms were eating away his body. But he was so magnanimous. Please do not try to imitate him. But do try to emulate the spirit. If a worm would fall from his body, he would very respectfully pick it up and place it right from the location it fell. That Vasudeva came to see Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya already left, and he started to cry. I lost this opportunity of my life to have the darshan of the Lord. And Lord Chaitanya, even though he was a distant place, he's in the heart of every living being. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hariteshir janatishkati. He's the witness of our every desire, our every word, and our every action. And he saw that Vasudeva was so much feeling separation. And this feeling of separation from the Lord draws the Lord to reveal himself to us. So he came all the way back, and he saw this Vasudeva, and he went to embrace him. Vasudeva said, no, no, Lord, don't touch me. I have leprosy. Lord Chaitanya embraced him. There was blood, there was pus, there was worms, coming out of his body. And the Lord embraced him with affection. And as soon as he did that, Vasudeva was cured. His body became healthy, effulgent, and beautiful. And then he started to cry, and he offered a prayer. He quoted Sudama Vibra from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sudama was a very poor man, and he came to Krishna's beautiful palace in Dwarka, and Krishna embraced him. And when Krishna embraced him, Sudama said, "Who am I? Just a very fallen, insignificant, poor little Brahmin. And who are you, the husband of the goddess of fortune, the supreme absolute truth, the controller of all controllers, the Lord of the universe, and you embraced me with your arms?" Vasudeva said, "My body was so abominable. I was banished from anywhere anybody was living because I was so contagious. My skin was rotting so bad that the odor, nobody could come anywhere near me. What to speak of all of the substances coming out? And you embraced me with love as your own child. My Lord, I am yours. But I have one worry. Now I'm cured, and everyone's going to see that Vasudeva got the special mercy of the Lord. I may become proud. I may start to think that I'm better than someone else. And if I have that type of false ego, then my devotion will be spoiled." And Lord Chaitanya said, "No need to worry. Just chant the names of Krishna. Just be an instrument of Krishna's compassion in whatever you do. And I will always protect you if you are sincere." Later on, Lord Chaitanya was traveling to Vrindavan. And on his way, he was going through a forest called Jarikanda. Now, 500 years ago, the forests of India, there were no roadways and everything. I'm going to divert again, with your permission. Back in 1971, I was living in a forest in a mountain, just beyond Rishikesh in the Himalayas. And I was living in a cave with a yogi. It was so beautiful. It took about an hour to walk back there from the town. And it was all beautiful forests with wild animals. There was leopards and elephants and wild boars and deers and snakes. But when you're in a cave, you're just looking down at all of them thinking, my neighbors. And once you get used to neighbors like that, you realize they're much easier to live with than human neighbors. That was actually my experience. At the beginning, it's a culture shock. But once you get used to it, very nice, very natural. Anyways, when I was writing this book, The Journey Home, I wanted to go back to that cave to just get the feeling of what it was like. And there was a paved road, part of a national highway, that went right up to the cave. Through the jungle. Anyways. And the cave was boarded off. And there was a sign saying, no trespassing. because the government forest department evicted the yogis. But if you want to hear the reason and that story, you'll have to divert me another time. Because we're going to get back to the Jharikanda forest. In those days, there were wild animals. And Lord Chaitanya was traveling with one other very humble, gentle assistant. And Lord, he was intoxicated with the ecstasy of Radha's love. His arms were raised. He was chanting. Whether there was thousands of people around him or whether he was alone in the forest, he was so happy just chanting the names of God. And as he was going down this forest path, there was a man-eating Bengali tiger sleeping on the path. And Sri Chaitanya's assistant was praying that Lord Chaitanya wouldn't wake him up. Lord Chaitanya must have heard the prayer, because he went right up to the tiger, who was sound asleep, and he put his foot on the tiger's head and kicked him. And the tiger looked up, and the Lord said, "Chant the names of Hari," with so much compassion in his heart. Vidyavanaya sampani brahmani gavihastini suni chaiva supakecha pandita samatarashana. Real knowledge is to see the spiritual essence in everyone's heart, and therefore to see every living being with equal vision. Male, female, black, white, red, yellow, brown, whether they're of one religion or another religion or no religion, whether they're human or elephants or cows or dogs or cats or even tigers. My Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, he said, you can honor the love and love every soul in the heart of everyone, but if you're not Lord Chaitanya, don't embrace tigers. From a distance, show your love. But Lord Chaitanya kicked him. And with so much love for the soul of that tiger, he said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And because the power of his pure compassion for that soul in that tiger, it reached the tiger's heart. And the tiger lifted his paws, got up on his hind legs, and roared, "Krishna!" Sorry about that. Started weeping in ecstasy, dancing and chanting. He attained the perfection of life. What yogis, it takes them lifetimes of samadhi, he attained just by receiving the grace of God. Lord Chaitanya just go on chanting, Krishna! And he walked on. As the Lord was walking, this is a very interesting, very, very illuminating message to what I'm about to speak. This story, although it's a very simple story, it has given so much hope to me over the years. Because in the jungle, there are natural enemies. Tigers eat deer. So for the deer, the tiger is death personified. At the least expected moment, the tiger will pounce on the deer, rip its throat out, eat its flesh, and drink its blood. I'm sorry. Prasad's a little later. And so that's the way a deer sees a tiger. And what does the tiger see a deer? Something to kill and eat. So they're worst enemies. Lord Chaitanya was chanting the names of God along this footpath in the jungle, and he was so much attracting because of his love. What was attracting them? Because he loved them so much, they could feel his love. Love is the greatest power. It can transform people. Especially when it's from the soul and it touches the soul. So there was tiger after tiger after tiger on one side were following Lord Chaitanya. There were dozens of tigers just following wherever he would go. And on the other side of the footpath, dozens and dozens of deers were following him. They couldn't give up his company. Then Lord Chaitanya turned around and looked at all the tigers and all the deers, raised his hands and said, chant the names of Krishna and love each other. The tigers started chanting, the deer started chanting, and then a miracle happened. Each deer and tiger approached each other, and in pure, ecstatic love, they embraced. Each deer and tiger were embracing each other, and according to the scripture, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, they began to kiss each other. This is not about mundane romance. This is about spiritual love. They transcended all of their differences because their relationships were based on the higher principle of pleasing God. Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. All the disputes of this world, whether there are disputes among people, whether there are disputes among nations, whether disputes among religions, family members, disputes among any variety of things in this world. If we actually unite on a higher principle than all of these superficialities, there's unity and there's love. Srila Prabhupada, my Gurudev, told a story. Mahatma Gandhi got a fight with his wife, and he got so angry, he said, out from this house. So she left. So a little while later, he came outside and she saw her on the side of the road. He said, what are you doing here? She said, where am I going to go? He smiled. He said, come back in and forget it. That's an interesting story, isn't it? Because Mahatma Gandhi's the father of peace and nonviolence. He was the inspiration of the Nobel Peace Laureate Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, and yet he's fighting with his wife. Now for Swamis, this is a very encouraging story, actually. Because in marriage, no one is exempt. What each of you tell me, you probably think nobody else knows. I don't tell anybody what you tell me, but what I do know is everybody else tells me the same thing. But Srila Prabhupada said that this is the solution. These two words, forget it. Whatever differences, they're just not important. What's really important is the higher principle, the spiritual principle. And in this way, to the extent that Lord Chaitanya had the deer and the tigers serving each other with ecstatic love, embracing, kissing, and dancing as they were chanting the holy name. And Lord Chaitanya just left them in their loving relationships with each other. And then he came to a pond of water. and there was a herd of wild elephants. But I'll save that story till next time, or whatever. But the principle of all these beautiful narrations which the Holy Scriptures are giving us, and the Acharyas have preserved and spoken in assemblies like this for centuries, is the incredible opportunity we all have to access the ultimate wealth, the ultimate fulfillment, which is within each and every one of our hearts. And the purpose of yoga, the purpose of spirituality, the purpose of religion is not just to create some sectarian fraternity of people. It's to access that spiritual essence that is the potential within all of us. To taste real love, real happiness, and to change the world. And one of the highest, most recommended ways of doing so is satsang, coming together. To hear stories that inspire us to unite on these higher principles of devotion. I thank you very, very much. Would you like to chant and dance like the tigers and the deer?
Haribol!
As I'm chanting this, please fold your hands like this, welcoming Krishna's name into your heart, and as you're chanting, raise your arms like this.